Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is Professor Hall, and we are continuing our journey through the Harlem Renaissance, looking at some of the amazing artists. And here we have our composer, William Grant Still. And again, this is just going to be a very brief overview and just kind of a glimpse into Still's life. And hopefully, if you're interested in him, you can go find more about him and listen to some of his music because he made a lot of it. Let's get started. Love these pictures with some of his early bands, especially this one where it very clearly it's like, here he is right there. little with a little arrow. So let's talk about Still's early life. He was born in 1895 in Mississippi. He grew up in Arkansas as the son of two teachers, but his father died when he was an infant at just 3 months old. His mother, thankfully, later on found someone else, and his stepfather was a very kind man who introduced him to classical music as well as African American spirituals and other forms of song. And this really inspired William Still quite a bit. He started violin lessons as a teen, and then he played the clarinet, the saxophone, the oboe, the cello, the bass, and again, the saxophone. I have it twice. Okay. Well, he played a number of instruments. Most people who play instruments typically just stick to one. So the fact that he was playing six is just amazing to me. The only other person, one of the few people I know who has done that also is Flavor Flav, the rapper. You might not know that about him, but he actually plays a number of instruments quite prolifically. But Still attended Wilberforce University, a historical black college in Ohio, before later going on to the Oberlin Conservatory of Music. At the end of his college years, he entered the world of commercial or popular music. He played in orchestras and he orchestrated many songs, working in particular with violin, cello, and the oboe. For several years, he arranged and conducted the Deep River Hour over CBS and WOR. So that was work in radio. He made his first appearances as a serious composer in New York in the 1920s. And as you can guess it, that was during the Harlem Renaissance, right? Here he is much older. He had just this and a really long-lasting legacy. He wrote over 200 works, including operas, ballets, symphonies, chamber works, arrangement of folk themes, especially Negro spirituals, instrumental, choral, and solo vocal works. Really quite known for mostly classical music that was kind of imbued a bit with some of the blues and jazz influences that were going on at the time. He became the first African American to conduct a professional symphony orchestra in the United States, which was the Los Angeles Symphony Orchestra at the Hollywood Dome. He was the first to conduct a major symphony orchestra also in the Deep South. He was the first to conduct a white radio orchestra in New York City. And he was the first to have an opera produced by a major company in the United States and the first to have an opera televised over a national network. So many firsts for this amazing man. The white radio orchestra in particular is interesting to me because with segregation being so prominent at the time, you would have very often had a person of color conducting just an orchestra or leading a band with other people of color, right? And sometimes you would have a few white musicians maybe in here and there. But for someone to be not just playing with a white orchestra, but leading and conducting that white orchestra, and particularly with their own work, right? These are other people playing his work and he's leading them. And to me, it just goes to show how incredible his talent was and how he really was pushing those racial barriers at a time when, as I said, segregation was still very prominent, right? So his career really spanned beginning in the Harlem Renaissance, and like many of our artists and musicians, quite a bit later as well. His music was inspired by both jazz and classical compositions. He preferred simple, kind of commercial harmonies, that meaning a little bit more popular, a little bit less avant-garde. A lot of jazz at the time was like completely unsyncopated, and then they'd go off and have pieces where they would just be improvising, but still really wanted to keep the classical notes. And to me, this is very similar to County Cullen, who was a very prominent poet at the time, right? Trying to kind of do his own thing with the classical forms that he grew up with and that he had learned, and wanting to then imbue those forms with his perspective and identity. So simple commercial harmonies, orchestrations with a more serious tone a lot of time. So what we're going to do is listen to a few pieces of the same longer, much longer piece. I can't have you guys listen to the whole thing here, but you can see where it's from. This is a symphony producing one of his works, and we're going to listen to a little bit of Longing, and then I'm going to skip forward to Humor so that you can just hear some of the versatility in his music. Before I do that, this is called the Afro-American Symphony by William Grant Still, and it moves in emotion from longing to sorrow to humor to aspiration. So here we go. So that was a bit of Longing. And I think if you have heard Gershwin's music before, it's quite similar in my opinion. It's similar to the fact that it's classical imbued with a little bit of blues, a little bit of jazz, that swing sound put into that very traditional classical form. So as I said, we're going to move to humor. All right, just a little taste, but I hope that you can see there how songs that were popular at the time from like Broadway, where you'd have a very comedic kind of story going on, or maybe a romance, or people kind of skipping through the town or on their way to work, and then the play kind of picks up, right? That's the kind of tone we have there. So really, even in this one piece, you can just see the talent or hear rather, I guess, you can hear the talent, and you can hear the just diversity and eclecticness of his work, from these classical themes imbuing jazz and spirituals and Broadway and the blues and all of that into one amazing song with 4 parts that sound really quite different in each movement. So that's it for today. I hope you learned a little bit about William Grant Still, and I hope this inspires you to learn more. I'll see everybody next week. Thanks.